Well game.
Oh my gosh. Alright, man. So, this is godcomp versus jungle. They aren't playing RMD. I'm very excited to see this.
I think this is... Yeah, I think this is traditionally a hard matchup for godcomp. But we'll see.
I'm still reloading my UI a bunch to try and get the cooldowns because I'm missing way too many. Oh, I'm missing even more now. This sucks.
Yeah, I'm missing a lot too.
Yeah, I'm not sure what changed. I don't know.
Alright, I only have Gorecki now, so let's improvise.
Do it.
Early Frostbolt's coming out from Jahmilli, obviously building the icicles up for that push. Beanslayerx still sitting in stealth, waiting for that time to pounce. He's going to pounce Jahmilli, blinks immediately out of it. Frozen Orb comes down, defreeze out, disarm onto Gorecki, possibly a bash out if Rynd can position for it. He's not going to be able to get it. Feign Death comes out. He's trying to live with just the Roar Sacrifice at 60% HP, pulling back to huge sack in the back line. You should be able to top him off, but Saved by the Light's going to proc. They shred through it with the Devouring Plague and Ice now with Jahmilli going for more polymorphs. Not going to be able to get them. Rynd playing very far back right now, a little bit nervous to push up with all the CC available. The Wyvern's going to land. He couldn't Shadow Meld. He had Fairy Fire by Beanslayer, so good Fairy Fire, but the fear on the Beanslayer gets dispelled by Fuzion there very quickly. Now the half trap lands. Murder of Crows up into Wizkx. They're trying to get it dispersed here, but his HP is just not moving. The Iron Bark comes out. He got bashed with NS, but I don't think Gorecki's going to be able to trank shot it off, as it did recently get nerfed, so he's going to get the NS off, unfortunately now. Beanslayer into the bash. They're swapping to him. Shadow Fiend, Comet Storm coming down. He trinkets immediately to try and get back onto Jahmilli, but there's the deep freeze landing. Full clone out of that. Beanslayer in a bit of trouble here.
And Jahmilli using that deep freeze and gets interrupted on that polymorph. A huge sack silence out on him. The offensive clone coming out from Rynd on the Beanslayers, denying any of that healing. Huge sack caught into the DR fear, but he should be able to get some heals out on the Beanslayer after that. The War Mastery comes out, just spamming off those heals. Meanwhile, Jahmilli down to around 40% HP. Rynd sitting as far back as possible, getting out those heals, but he is caught into that full ribbon, and Jahmilli could be in a little bit of trouble right now. But at the same time, Gorecki gets down to around 60% HP, having to use that deterrence immediately. Saved by the Light comes out as well. Both teams under a lot of pressure right now. The Word of Glory coming out from huge sack. Jahmilli at around 65% HP. Good CC by Rynd onto Beanslayer, stopping some of that damage. Trying desperately to top off Jahmilli right now, but the Hodge comes out onto Rynd. The bash comes out onto Wizkx, and Jahmilli in a situation where he's in a 1v3. Rynd into the cloned. Jahmilli just kiting, trying to survive, avoid as much damage as possible so he doesn't have to use that ice block. And he's going to get topped off by Rynd, but that was crazy.
Yeah, and Gorecki now into the full bash. No trinket, one deter left if he can survive it, but there might be a Horrify afterwards. He's actually going for the Wyvern, stinging. Rynd Shadow Melds the Wyvern. Devouring Play comes up, but he did sacrifice the Polymorph, so huge sack with a huge sack there. Going to get out of that Polymorph immediately, keep Gorecki at 50%. Wizkx getting pressured now, but he still has his dispersion available now. DR Poly, Devouring Play coming up onto Gorecki. Has his trinket in 7 seconds. A fear for cross CC on the Beanslayer stops. They actually got the Cyclone before the fear, so luckily they should be able to get some form of counter pressure, some semblance of damage right now, but it's just not happening. Rynd rebuffing even in the meantime to keep Wizkx fully hot. He's just going to get cloned by Beanslayer. Huge stack with the Avenging Wrath, keeping his team totally top. Barrage comes out with the Fist of Justice. Jahmilli taking a bunch of damage in the center of the map. Might want to reposition. Has to use the Ice Block because of that. It's going to be his last Ice Block. If there was an opportunity here for Beanslayer and Gorecki, this is it.
And Beanslayer, I think, is going to have his Incarnation up soon. I can't actually see his cooldown, but I think he hasn't used it in a while. Huge sack, does freedom that defreeze. Beanslayer taking a lot of damage right now, but Fuzion actually not in ACC, puts a sack out onto Beanslayer, is going to be able to hopefully top him back off. Jahmilli does get the Iron Bark from Rynd, and they might be able to burst them. I mean, he has no blocks, the Iron Bark's done, and if they can get any CC onto Rynd, but Beanslayer taking so much damage, the Saved by the Light comes out, the bash coming out onto Beanslayer, he is going to trinket that, and he is sitting pretty right now, but he isn't able to get too much damage out, trying to throw out some clones, gets the clones out onto Wizkx, Rynd caught into that full Hodge, and they are going offensive on Jahmilli right now. He's trying to get away with that blazing speed, desperately throwing out all those spell steals, throwing out some polymorphs, just doing anything to survive, but they don't have any more CC for Rynd.
Here comes the
whip.
That's it!
30% HP, the trap coming out from Rynd, trying everything he can to live, but and Rynd, huge NS on a Jahmilli, gets him up to around 75% HP. I actually thought he was going to die there, but some way, somehow.
Yeah, Wizkx clutch horrify onto Beanslayer, keeping him alive in that moment of need when he had no blocks. He still has no blocks for some time. The second round of Murder of Crows could potentially kill him here if they can get the CC. Unfortunately, I can't see if Rynd has his trinket, but if he doesn't, but Beanslayer in the meantime getting pressured 50%. Devouring Plague, Ice Nova comes in, huge amount of damage onto him. Mind Flayed now even connecting, going for Cyclones defensively, lands it onto Wizkx. Unfortunately, it's DR'd, saved by the Light Skin of Proc. He has Avenging Wrath into the bash. He's going to get bopped out of that immediately, but now Huge Sack into the full Fear at 60% on Beanslayer into the Horrify, but no Shadow Priest stops. Not a lot of damage coming out. The Iron Bark used preemptively onto Jahmilli here to try and keep him offensive. Rynd even trinketing to keep his team offensive. They feel the kill. Devouring Plague connects onto Beanslayer. Huge Stack trinkets and tops him. Fist of Justice though. Jahmilli, this is the second round of Crows with no block, and Rynd unfortunately not getting CC. Denounce is coming in. Jahmilli positioned well in the back here. Rynd even going for Cyclones now onto Beanslayer. Poly onto Gorecki. Jahmilli needs to stay alive here. If they can manage to live to that Cold Snap reset, that's their opportunity to survive. He's still being pressured at 50% HP, gets locked out on the polymorphs here, but with no CC onto Rynd, I don't imagine he's going to have that hard of a time healing through it.
Yeah, and Rynd actually just used his trinket around like 20-30 seconds ago, so Jahmilli not going to have that block for another 30 seconds. If they're going to make anything happen, it's going to have to be soon. But Beanslayer caught into the full bash. The sack actually getting dispelled from Huge Sack onto Beanslayer. Beanslayer gets offensively cloned by Rynd. The CC coming out onto Huge Sack now. Gets put into that Frostjaw, into the Silence. Are they going to have any follow-up for it? Incarnation coming out from Beanslayer, though. They're trying to turn it around onto Jahmilli. Jahmilli has his block in 6 seconds. Can he live the 6 seconds he needs? 4, 3, 2. He's going to have that block available. The Iron Bark coming out from Rynd. And I don't even think he's going to have to use that Ice Block, which is well done. I mean, they survived the Incarnation. Turning around onto Wizkx, though, who's down to around 50% HP, but Rynd still not in any CC, desperately throwing out all those hots. The regrowth's coming out, the offensive clone by Beanslayer onto Wizkx right now, and Wizkx could be in a little bit of trouble.
Yeah, Rynd is still comfortable on mana, though. The bash comes out. The Cyclone gets silenced by Wizkx there. Good silence. Now the full trap, though, onto Rynd. Fist of Justice onto Wizkx. Jahmilli getting pressured as well. Both players going pretty low here. Master Spell comes out, but he gets cloned up afterwards. Huge Stack's going to come out of the Fear here. Have to pop something, maybe a sack or something to reduce the damage on the Beanslayer to keep him offensive here on Jahmilli, but he's going to use that Cold Snap. He has one more block. He's still getting pressured, though. 30% HP. Rynd with the NS. It doesn't do a lot of healing. He's still at 60%. Clone onto Wizkx. They're trying to pressure Jahmilli. They've locked him out on almost every cast he's done. He has the Blazing Speed to get out of there from the pressure. He can't take it. Clone from Rynd onto Beanslayer should peel him in the meantime. The Wyvern Sting's going to land, but with Beanslayer cloned up, it's not going to mean too much. They do land the half trap out, though. Jahmilli's still not taking too much damage, so Rynd can sit through all this. The Fist of Justice is going to trigger that Iron Bark immediately onto Wizkx to answer the Murder of Crows, as those Crows are no joking business, but they're just going to swap onto Jahmilli and clone Wizkx up at 50%. He has that block if he can get it off here. Bestial Wrath Kill Command doing quite a bit of damage to Jahmilli. Rynd finally coming out of CC, though. Should be able to keep him top tier. Denounces 30% HP. Jahmilli still feeling the heat.
Yeah, the Disarm comes out onto Beanslayer, and the Double Fear onto Fuzion as well as Gorecki. They're trying to turn around onto Beanslayer. He's going to pop that wall to avoid as much damage as possible. Fuzion does get DR silence there, but Jahmilli's still under a lot of pressure at 50% HP. Rynd not in any CC though, and Beanslayer down to around 20%, saved by the light procs. Fuzion does have his trinket and bubble available. He's just going to sit all of that though, and he does give a huge heal onto Beanslayer. And if we look at Fuzion's cooldowns, I mean, he still has a bop, a bubble, a trinket available. Rynd caught into that Wyvern Sting. DR trap comes out, and they are trying to pressure Jahmilli as much as possible. Fuzion using that wings to get as much healing out as possible on the Beanslayer, but they just aren't able to top him. They just can't top him. Wizkx and Jahmilli just causing so much pressure on him. Rynd getting that offensive clone off. It's going to fade, and Huge Sack still spamming out those heals on the Beanslayer. But yeah, I mean, Fuzion still has his trinket or his bubble available.
Mm-hmm. And that's key right now. He's even throwing denounces out on a Wizkx. It might be his disperse here. And S comes out to try and top him. It doesn't do too much. Dampening at 21%. Double Fear lands though. Deep Freeze on a Huge Sack. They need this poly. He gets locked out. Beanslayer into the bash. Bopped immediately by Huge Sack. Going for the Word of Glory. He's trying to fake the CS, but he gets Frostjawed into a full clone. Beanslayer going for a clone here, but he gets horrified on it. Ice Nova Comet Storm comes in. He has to bubble. Is it enough? 13% survival instinct saved by the light. Sack is going to come up, but a spell stealed instantly by Jahmilli. They're putting the pressure on to Beanslayer right now. 50% 50% Saved by the Light is saving his behind right now, but there's a second Devouring Plague coming in. Huge Stack has managed to sustain him, but that cooldown advantage has been burned through. Jahmilli's going to almost have 2 blocks available now, and Beanslayer in desperation popping that Incarnation, trying to turn anything around onto Wizkx, maybe pressure Rynd's mana as well. Jahmilli also getting fairly low, and Rynd's going to have to split his healing up and split his cooldowns. It's the Ironbark onto Wizkx, but Beanslayer's attacking Jahmilli. He's going to blink away, but he catches up! He doesn't block! And down goes Jahmilli!
Oh my goodness. That's so unfortunate. He got crit really hard
Oh,
there.
man.
I'm sure he didn't expect that damage. I've been in that situation many times, and he had both his ice blocks up there. So, I mean, they were in a pretty good spot to win, but he just got bursted down so hard.
27% dampening, so that was a fantastic game. I mean, both of these teams, oh my gosh, that was unbelievable. Let's take a quick look at that replay. As you can see, Jahmilli is sitting completely fine. He's at full health, man. It's actually crazy that he actually got dipped that low. He's still sitting relatively high, but the Ironbark actually goes out onto Wizkx as Rynd goes into that DR stun. Oh my gosh, he just drops so incredibly fast. I can see how that was difficult to get that block off. But we're going to go into the second map of this best of 3 series. I wonder if they're going to change their comp up at all. I'm not sure.
I think it will, if they can. I mean, who is the rogue? It's Jahmilli, wouldn't it be? And then Piecez?
Do they need to change their comp, though? I mean, the game wasn't... That seemed like kind of a random kill. Like,
yeah,
the game...
It wasn't.
I wouldn't base any changes on that.
Yeah, it wasn't like one of those games where it's like, I think we need to change our comp because that wasn't going well. I mean, the game was going perfectly fine for them. That just got kind of bursted down.
97k versus by...
That Rynd was though. He was at like 6%.
Yeah, you're right about that. Rynd was in big trouble with his mana. And I mean, I keep calling him Huge Stack, but that is Fusion. It just gets confusing.
I want to change it so I don't...
Yeah, I wish we could edit that name because I don't want to see...
if you have him on Real ID, you can change his name. If you go to AL Spec...
On Real ID.
If you go to AL Spec, and then you go into the tab, the second tab, there is a nickname option. You just drag and drop him and change his name.
Oh my god, I don't know what is... Oh, I'm not doing this. This is too hard for me.
Yeah. I already give up. He's just Huge Stack from now on, okay?
He's just Huge Stack. He had Huge Stack.
Yeah, we just want you guys to know that if we say Huge Stack, it's actually Fusion. He's supposed to have a ridiculous name, so this is what he gets.
Okay, this is what he gets. Oh my gosh, these cooldowns are not loading for me. There must have been something that happened in the recent build.
Beanslayerx is the one to blame for me right now. He's the only one I don't have now. Alright, man, Beanslayer's selfie camera bringing him good luck. Getting a kill there with almost 2 blocks available to Jahmilli at a very high dampening, though. Rynd having to make some hard decisions at the end, Ironbarking Wizkx and the Incarnation from Beanslayer, capitalizing that and globaling Jahmilli, unfortunately, for him. But they are building up their orbs and stuff off of the pet here, and possibly maybe throwing some frostbolts here shortly. Jahmilli kind of not doing anything. Maybe still stunned by the kill there earlier on. Now finally casting some frostbolts to build up the icicles, and Gorecki's kind of donating that, but he's getting his stacks as well. Maybe they're going to end up killing the pet. I'm not sure if that'll reset his stacks or not, if they do, but Huge Stack is just healing. He even gave Sacred Shield, I think, to Beanslayerx, the pet. He's finally retreating. The dinosaur immediately charging back, though. It's a little bit hilarious to watch this dinosaur just running around headbutting Jahmilli. He doesn't want to push in.
I wonder what they're waiting for. Like, what's the opener they want?
I think they want to go Beanslayer this game, so he does open up, bash onto Rynd, nice opener so far, but he does get horrified, out of line of sight. He could end up getting global back here. Comet Storm comes in, he's going to be able to get out in time, and now into the full bash, Devouring Plague, 40% silence on a Huge Stack, Fear connects, Deep Freeze on a Huge Stack, he freedoms it to try and get out of it in time, Explosive Trap to disorient Wizkx and Jahmilli here, and Beanslayer with the over jump into Rynd's base right now, and Rynd actually got chunked on 25% of his mana just in the initial exchange though, and it was huge last game. Amplified Magic comes out from Jahmilli with the Ironbark, but they're just going to swap over to Wizkx, and every time that Ironbark comes out, they just swap off of it, which is going to tap Rynd's mana even harder, so really well played from the jungle cleave, but there's the Horrify, possibly a bash or a stun out of that as well.
Yeah, and Beanslayer in quite a bit of trouble right now. He still hasn't popped that Incarnation. He does get cloned at around 30% HP. Gets switched over to Fusion by Rynd. Beautiful clones coming out of Rynd. The Silence comes out onto Fusion. He pops that Aura Mastery and pops that Wings, but at the same time, Gorecki getting CC'd a lot. So this godcomp doing an excellent job counter-pressuring. But Beanslayer popping that Incarnation. They are on Jahmilli right now. But he does have every hot in the game. Rynd just desperately trying to overheal him, keeping him topped off. Beanslayer having to play defensive now. The bop comes out on the bash from Beanslayer, but he is disarmed. Huge stack. Oh man, he still has those wings up, so he's going to be able to get those heals off. But that's the second wall from Beanslayer. But Wizkx taking a lot of damage, down around 40% HP. Rynd able to get those hots up on him. The fear, double fear comes out onto Beanslayer and Gorecki. Huge stack caught through that full.
Oh, no block!
Jahmilli almost dies without blocking again, but he does get it off. Not going to make the same mistake twice. And Beanslayer is still in a lot of trouble. I mean, he's hiding behind the pillar right now, throwing out those healing touches. He knows his Paladin isn't going to get to play the game, but he's finally out of CC. And right as I say that, he gets put into another clone. Gorecki forcing into that deterrence. This godcomp just has so much CC.
Yeah, and Beanslayer gets silence on that clone, getting mind flayed with full dots. Wizkx has to have full orbs at this point. Beanslayer popping the Tiger's Fury, trying to get some damage out onto Jahmilli. Lands the bash onto Rynd. They really need the trap out of that. Beanslayer with the pre-Nature's Vigil here and the sacrifice as well. Fist onto Wizkx. Jahmilli getting chunked here at 30%. Denounce is coming in. Fuzion wants this win. He wants to take Jahmilli out here in the first round. 60% HP. Rynd pops the Nature's Vigil as well. Bashes Beanslayer up. Unfortunately overlapped with the Horrify, so he's going to come out of that and be actually just fine, and that's not what you want to see. Beanslayer going for the Shadow Meld re-stealth, pounce onto Jahmilli, forcing his blink. It's going to connect immediately, forces the Iron Bark out of Rynd, and Rynd has managed to heal more efficiently, sustain his mana. He isn't chunked as much as he was in the beginning. Beanslayer running for a clone onto Rynd right now. He's just going to get it right in the face of everyone. A Froster coming out onto Huge Stack. He gets locked on the poly though, and he's getting chunked. Murder of Crows just taking him out. 30% HP. Fist onto Rynd. Wizkx rooted up, going for the MD. Gets cloned on it. Into the second block he goes, and that's going to be all of the ice blocks for Jahmilli for at least 2 minutes. And Rynd now into the Wyvern Sting, still unable to top him or even hot him at this point. Into the half clone now. Huge Stack with the Avenging Wrath preemptively to keep his team offensive here. They feel the win. 30% HP. Rynd and S's, it doesn't do too much, but the CC coming out onto Beanslayer now.
And Beanslayer caught into that full bash, but Fuzion not in any CC at all. He has those Avenging Wrath wings up right now. The Hodge comes out onto Rynd. Beanslayer going to get topped off by Fuzion, and I don't think they're going to have any follow-up CC. I think Wizkx gripped him out of the trap. So that was well done by Wizkx stopping that CC onto Rynd, but Beanslayer still in a lot of trouble. The Save by the Light comes out. Rynd cloning that Save by the Light. They're going to try to get any CC they can onto Fuzion. Jahmilli has that Icy Veins up right now, trying to get out as much pressure as possible. The Sheep goes out onto Gorecki. Silence onto Huge Stack. And he does pop that Survival Instincts, but one key thing to note is that I think Beanslayer's Incarnation is desynced with Jahmilli's Ice Block, so he's going to have a moment in time where Jahmilli doesn't have Ice Block, and they might be able to kill him. But at the same time, Beanslayer's still in a lot of trouble. The Sheeps come out onto Fuzion. He is going to have to bubble that to keep Beanslayer topped up. They're going to try to turn it around onto Wizkx, who's down around 30% HP. He does have Disperse. He's forced into that Disperse. Beanslayer does have that Incarnation up right now, and this is what I'm talking about. This is the moment they have to pressure. I mean, Rynd caught into that clone. He's going to trigger that immediately. NS Wizkx, but Wizkx still not out of the woods yet.
Yeah, Rynd answering the Incarnation well, though. Beanslayer getting locked out of the clone, trying to pressure Wizkx, and that Incarn's going to fade. Cold Snap's going to come up, so unless they get the kill here in 10 seconds, Jahmilli should be fine. Wizkx is the one that's vulnerable, though, and Beanslayer's trying to get a restealth, especially the Water Elemental. The Dot's not going to let him do that. Deep Freeze onto Huge Sack. No Polymorph just yet. The Blazing Speed comes out, but he can pre-sack this if he can get it. He does pre-sack, but the Poly got locked out as well, and Beanslayer's getting pressured in the silence. He Shadow Meld restealths desperately to try and avoid some damage. Going for a Cyclone now. Going to land onto Wizkx. No Trinket, so he's going to be stuck in that. They're pressuring Jahmilli to try and force that block that is available now. Full Poly on a Huge Sack. Unfortunately, they cloned Beanslayer in the moment of time when they have CC. Wizkx is going to land the full fear on him out of that, but they have to do a lot of damage in 4 seconds. He's actually just going to Trinket. He was worried about the damage and Maim onto Wizkx, though, going to prevent the Mass Dispel on the trap. Clone onto Jahmilli. Fist out of that. Wizkx getting pressure, trying to go for the MD, trying to fake the interrupts to get it, but he's not able to. He's getting chunked. 40% going for an MD on nothing at this point. 30% gets the Iron Bark, getting pressured so hard. Now trying to turn it around with the Horrifier onto Beanslayer. Ice Nova comes in. Deep Freeze on a Huge Sack. Beanslayer getting pressured at 60% HP, trying to push in here. Does manage to lock out the Cyclone. Go for a Cyclone of his own onto Rynd. Jahmilli with 1 block available at 50%. Should be okay so long as he presses it.
Yeah, he's down to 20% HP, and he's probably going to be forced into that Ice Block. The Maim comes out. Rynd on an ACC, though, desperately getting those heals out. Beanslayer now in a lot of trouble, though. He does pop that Survival Instincts. The full trap comes out onto Rynd. Bash onto Wizkx. Jahmilli is in a 1v3 situation, having to use that Ice Block. And, I mean, although Fuzion doesn't have a lot of cooldowns, this jungle is causing so much pressure onto this godcomp. I mean, Jahmilli's now out of the Ice Block, but they're turning it on to Wizkx. The Hodge comes out from Fuzion onto Rynd, and they're going to be back on Jahmilli. He's not going to have a block available for another 2 minutes, so he could be in a lot of trouble here. I mean, down to around 30% HP. Rynd out of he just desperately getting those heals and he just dies. I mean, Rynd wasn't even in CC there, was he?
I don't think so.
That was just damage. That was
jungle damage, man.
Unbelievable.
That was El Damage, dude.
I didn't think he was gonna die there. I really didn't.
Every time that he was safe earlier, it was because Wizkx was peeling Beanslayer, and at that moment in time, Beanslayer wasn't getting peeled, I don't believe. We have the replay to watch it, so he just kind of ran out of stuff. Dampening was reasonably high, and he couldn't heal through it. Something to note is that he was going for NS Healing Touch, which makes me wonder what he was playing talent-wise, because I didn't see any Trents. I didn't see any trees. He wasn't playing tree.
I didn't even know you use NS Healing Touch. Is that like something
I don't think we should. It should always be regrowth of Soul of the Forest. His NSs were always really low. I mean, a couple of them he had to NS just because he didn't have time to get Soul of the Forest. But there was almost every single NS is Healing Touch. And I didn't see Force of Nature. Maybe I'm blind. I could just easily be blind.
He didn't have no Trents.
So he wasn't really using Soul of the Forest really effectively, I don't think. So that's why I wasn't able to just top Jahmilli with like that lay on hands effect. So
I'm not exactly sure, but I mean that team was one of the favorites to like do really well in the tournament, and I mean the first round they're knocked down into the losers bracket, but luckily for them there is a losers bracket, and I could easily see them climb